South Beach, Florida, the epicenter of babes, booze, drugs, and non-stop parties. It is not exactly where you'd expect to find a couple of 20-year-olds running a major operation. But David Packouz and Efraim Diveroli were no ordinary guys. Amid the lights and chaos, they brought much more to the scene than just weed, cocaine, and money to burn. These two were international arms dealers, America's youngest lords of war. Partying all night in Miami's hottest clubs, they were raking in millions by exploiting a war-stricken Middle East. Based on a true story first illustrated by Guy Lawson's viral article, The Stoner Arms Dealers, and his subsequent book, Arms and the Dudes, The War Dogs shows just how far the American dream can go in taking advantage of international conflict. In this video, we'll see how these two young men played the money game with their only customer, the US military. And remember, no business or government agency buys and sells as much as the Department of Defense. By law, every Pentagon purchase order must be open to the public, and under the Bush administration, small businesses like AEY found their golden opportunity. David Packouz and Efraim Diveroli first met at their local synagogue during their teenage years. David, a massage therapist, struggled to make ends meet and was anxious about his future. In stark contrast, Diveroli, who was destined to follow in his father's footsteps as an arms dealer, had a clear and unconventional career path. After being expelled from school in the 9th grade, Diveroli moved to Los Angeles to learn the arms trade from his uncle. By the age of 16, he was already selling military equipment overseas. Following a dispute with his uncle in 2001, Diveroli returned to Miami, took control of his father's shell company, AEY Inc., and began his solo venture into the arms dealing business. David's life took a dramatic turn when he reconnected with his old school friend, Diveroli, who gave him a lift to a party. During the ride, Diveroli revealed that he had $1.8 million in the bank at just 18 years old, a fortune made by selling military gear to the government. At the time, David was 22 and, intrigued by Diveroli's success, decided to join him in the business. Together, they worked tirelessly, bidding on government contracts for arms deals, both large and small, through a government website. Their grueling 18-hour workdays were fueled by lines of cocaine, and their small workspace was constantly enveloped in a smoky haze from Miami's finest ganja. Before diving into how they scammed the US military, it's important to understand the arms trade landscape in the early 2000s. During George W. Bush's presidency, private military contracts surged as the US government sought weapons at an unprecedented rate due to the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East. Under Bush, these contracts skyrocketed from $145 billion to $390 billion. US law mandated that every Pentagon purchase order be open to public bidding, giving the Department of Defense access to a vast network of international arms dealers through independent contractors. Eastern European countries had stockpiled weapons, preparing for war with the West during the Cold War era. When war no longer seemed imminent, arms dealers got a hold of these warehouses filled with ammunition, which they set out to sell to the highest bidder. The US government couldn't get involved with these shady dealers, at least not directly. For that reason, they relied on contractors to do their dirty work. Instead of paying an arms dealer, the Department of Defense paid a middleman to do business with arms dealers. That's why the arms trade was dubbed a kind of gray market. While this market had a criminal edge, independent contractors like Diveroli allowed the US government to procure necessary supplies for its militias in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Pentagon didn't scrutinize how contractors conducted business, with only a few restrictions: an embargo on Chinese ammunition and a ban on doing business with the Russian firm Rosoboron, known for allegedly selling nuclear equipment to Iran. Upon taking control of AEY, Diveroli capitalized on the expanding arms aftermarket fueled by the war. Operating from a modest room in a family home in Miami, he ran AEY from his bedroom. Despite its humble beginnings, Diveroli quickly mastered the complex language of federal contracts and leveraged the company's minimal overhead to undercut competitors. By focusing on smaller contracts, he built a solid record of performance, making AEY an attractive prospect for the Pentagon. Diveroli had a natural talent for charm and business, which he used effectively with the Pentagon's buyers, who were often inexperienced soldiers. His smooth-talking skills allowed him to persuade the State Department to accept cheaper weapons after AEY had already secured a contract, significantly boosting the company's profits. 7 months into David Packouz's work with AEY, he and Diveroli attended an international arms fair in Paris. There, they met Heinrich Thome, portrayed as Henry Girard in the movie, a well-connected Swiss arms dealer and one of the founders of Brugger and Thome AG, a Swiss defense supplier. Henry had faced trouble when Amnesty International accused him of smuggling arms out of Zimbabwe, violating US sanctions. He was placed on a US watch list and was under investigation for shipping weapons from Serbia to Iraq. Despite these issues, Henry saw AEY as a useful partner for accessing Pentagon contracts. With Henry's assistance, AEY became more successful. In July 2006, Packouz and Diveroli discovered a major opportunity: a substantial federal contract to support the Afghan National Army. The 44-page contract required a vast amount of supplies, including 100 million rounds of AK-47 ammunition, rifles, rockets, and 100,000 grenades. This $298 million contract stipulated that the ammunition be serviceable without qualification, a term that Packouz and Diveroli interpreted rather loosely. With Henry's connections, AEY had a real shot at winning the contract. The terms appeared flexible regarding the quality of ammunition, allowing AEY to potentially deliver lower quality products as long as they functioned properly. Their $298 million bid undercut major competitors like Lockheed Martin and General Dynamics by about $53 million, securing them the contract. Since the contract didn't specify an age limit for the ammunition, AEY sourced cheap ammo manufactured in 1966 during the Vietnam War era. By continuously finding cheaper sources, their commission on the Afghan deal swelled to a hefty $85 million. Despite having several options for ammo suppliers, AEY chose to work with Albanian contacts provided by Henry. They opted for the Albanians because they didn't demand large upfront payments and could handle the massive volume AEY needed. Diveroli sent his third friend, 24-year-old pot dealer Alex Podriski, who is not shown in the film, to be the point man and finalize the deal in Albania, not David Packouz. When Alex arrived in Tirana, he noticed some troubling signs. The safety conditions were poor. Soldiers were smoking in a room full of gunpowder, and the ammunition was stored in rusty cans on rotting wood. Most concerning was the Chinese writing on the ammo packaging. This was a serious issue. The US had banned Chinese weapons, and the contract specifically forbade using Chinese ammo. With the deadline approaching, Packouz and Diveroli had to find a workaround quickly, so they decided to repack the ammunition to hide its origin. Podriski arranged for a local box manufacturer, Costa Trebica, renamed as Enver in the movie, to transfer the ammo from the rusty cans to new cardboard boxes. Trebica was unsure why the request was made, but Podriski explained it was to save on shipping costs. Although this seemed like a solution, things soon went wrong. After Efraim Diveroli learned that Henry was charging them double the asking price just to be the broker on the deal, Diveroli tried to cut out Henry. Henry had intentionally screwed them over because, like Efraim and David, he was in it for the money. He charged them a 400% markup on ammo, paying only 2.5 cents per round, and charging Efraim and David 10 cents per round, playing the middleman to these middlemen. What really happened was that Diveroli contacted Costa Trebica, the owner of the box company, for help. Trebica met with the Albanian defense minister to argue that removing Henry from the deal would leave more money for everyone else. However, Trebica didn't realize that Henry was secretly paying extra money to the Albanians. As a result, the Albanians sided with Henry, cut Trebica out of the deal, and gave the repackaging job to another company. The Albanian mafia then took over the repackaging process. Despite several unexpected problems, the shipment was delivered on time, and it seemed like AEY was in the clear again. However, Diveroli's greed led him to renegotiate his handshake deal with Packouz, giving him less money. Without a written contract, Packouz had no legal way to fight it. They agreed on a new deal, but Packouz got much less than promised. Feeling betrayed, Packouz started his own arms dealing company, Dynacor Industries, and boasted about his experience with big clients even though it was mostly exaggerated. While the split between Packouz and Diveroli ended their partnership, they had bigger problems. Their aggressive bidding for the Afghan contract made them enemies. An American arms dealer tipped off the government about AEY's illegal activities. Federal agents raided Diveroli's office and found emails about the Chinese ammunition and how they bypassed the embargo. With this evidence, they couldn't escape the consequences. Diveroli and Packouz apologized, but it wasn't enough. Diveroli was sentenced to 4 years in prison, and Packouz received 7 months of house arrest. Their story didn't end there. In 2016, Hollywood released War Dogs, starring Jonah Hill and Miles Teller, based on their story. That same year, Diveroli wrote a memoir called Once a Gun Runner. Diveroli sued Warner Brothers and others, claiming they used his memoir for the movie without paying him. Despite serving his sentence, Diveroli continued to find himself in trouble. Guy Lawson's 2011 Rolling Stone article, on which the movie was based, focuses much more on the Pentagon's culpability, especially their lack of specifications regarding the ammo and their failure to properly vet the companies they were working with. AEY had in fact been placed on the State Department's watch list after importing illegal firearms, but the list was never checked by the Pentagon. They also failed to consider the bids AEY had previously defaulted on, which resulted in a less than stellar track record. "They got a lot of it in," says Lawson of the real events depicted in the movie. But you watch the end and you think it's about these two guys. It's not. It's about the system. The Pentagon had turned a blind eye to what private contractors like AEY were doing to acquire arms. It was evident that the Pentagon knew AEY had been shipping Chinese-made ammunition to Afghanistan, but the government was not charged in the case. Yet, a Pentagon investigation concluded that when the contract fell through, it led to mass shortages in the supply of ammo in Afghanistan in 2008. What do you think about the Pentagon's role in this story? Do you believe Diveroli and Packouz were solely to blame, or was the system at fault as well? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Money never sleeps on Wall Street, and neither does on our channel. Watch all the mind-blowing Wall Street stories and explore intriguing money movies, all here in one place. Like this video and subscribe to The Money Game to level up your financial game today.